Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Shadow Tech Alchemy. I'm Colin Davis. The website is shadowtechalchemy.com, and I have Katrina Darling with me today, and she's a Facebook friend of mine. She lives in on the east. Where do you live? Near Toronto?
Northern Ontario.
Northern Ontario, Canada. Yes. I was gonna tell her why I even wanted to talk to her, and the reason why is because on my Facebook community or whatever, I attract people who are into psychospirituality, people who are working on themselves and from whatever direction that might be. And I've noticed that most people who are in this field are dabblers, but they're not really super serious about it. And so when I find people that I think are really serious and they're really taking it seriously, then I want to encourage them. I want to get to know them. I want to learn from them. And and now I'm in this whole mode now where I don't have Melissa, and so I felt like I really need to start building this community of serious inner workers, alchemists, as we call it, and so I wanted to bring Katrina on. So does that make sense, Katrina?
Yeah, I would say too, like doing this work, you're never perfect. It's not about being perfect.
Hmm.
Really about being curious and like fucking up and taking a step back after and fucking up again until you get more and more comfortable with the triggers, with the defense mechanisms. And like it's a process too. I think like if I were to give anybody advice is like doing nervous system work, like really slowing things down. Like if you're not ready for shadow work, because if this was me 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been ready. Like
Hmm.
I think taking in all this information on your behaviors and other people's behaviors, that can be really, it could be really dysregulating.
Hmm.
And I think for me, like I think for anyone who does shadow work, I think you already have a bit of a spark. I know for myself, like I've had that spark. I've seen it since I was a kid. I've seen my own
Mm.
crazy
You're
responses,
self-aware.
projections. Yeah. And I think you can become self-aware. You know, it's a practice, but I do think like if I were to tell anybody, it's really slowing down your thought process, slowing down with your body, you know. It sounds funny, but self-touch, like one of
Right.
the biggest things that helped me actually slow down my reactions was
Hmm.
just like self-touch. Like it's affirming for yourself,
Hmm.
like your own aliveness, your own being. Because
Hmm.
when we're so focused outside, that's when we get really scattered inside and things aren't so clear. And it affirms the self-compassion. And I think to do shadow work, you have to become more self-compassionate. Um, And I think in the truther community and like a lot of communities, there's lots of an outward focus where if we bring that inwards, things become a lot more clear
Right.
and you get to know, am I speaking from my wound? Am I speaking from my own, you know, desire to be self-important, my victimhood? Or am I
Hmm.
speaking from this low, like clarity, this knowing
Right.
versus this like
Right.
agitation, and I have that agitation, so it's not that it's not there, but
Right.
it's befriending it.
Right. I was going to say, though, be conscious of that this is your mic. You're holding on, you got your hands on your mic right now. So let go of them. You see what I'm saying? The microphone on your phone? Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, because if you go like that or whatever, then it messes with the audio or whatever.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I'm an audio engineer. So I'm gonna be control freaking on audio.
Oh, that's fair, that's fair.
Um, everything you said there is amazing and very well said. And that's why I wanted to get you on because when you talk, a lot of just a lot of wisdom comes out. And what you're saying about slowing down and introspecting and self-touch, and how that, truther community is out here and this is all in here. And yeah, that's absolutely true. And then I don't, you have to have, your sacred space. You have to have your quiet time. You have to have your nature time. You have to have, you really have to have a lot of it too. It's like you guys are out there in the country and all that. And it's like that's really the best place for people to do this kind of work, is to be out in the country. Or I mean, I'm in a pretty good little situation temporarily right now where it's very quiet. But even when I was in California, I had my own live work loft, and that was my little, my man cave or whatever. And so, yeah, you have to have that. And you can't, and the thing about the devices and stuff and being on the devices and the scrolling and all of this, I was thinking about how, do you remember in history how the British got the Chinese addicted to opium? I think it was in the 1700s or something. They were through the East India, trading company. They were bringing in opium, and they got the whole, Chinese population addicted to opium so that they could then control them or whatever. And I think that's what they've done with us. And we're just completely addicted to devices and to sitting alone and being on our devices and interacting with people through the devices. And we're not going out, we're not meeting each other, not doing stuff. The Americans are the worst at this. The Europeans are not this bad, but the Americans are horrible at this. And so all these things, and just the busyness of the society and everything, it's like you have to make a conscious break with that. It doesn't mean you have to totally get offline and all that, but you have to make a conscious, it's like getting off of coffee or any other
Yeah.
addiction. You have to break with it, and you have to put in discipline to carve out an environment for yourself, a lifestyle for yourself that works for this.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to make space for it because it's easy to think what you're feeling is just yours when you're around a bunch of people, and that like all these incoming thoughts and
Yeah,
like that they're using our bodies and our senses against us. They're able to hijack our thoughts. I truly believe that because
yeah.
it's like if I have something that's sugary after like 5 weeks of not having sugar, as an
Oh,
example, the thoughts I'm having afterwards, I
wow,
genuinely, I,
wow.
I believe that there's parasites that have these thoughts, and they, no, like that's a bit of a,
Well, I think we already have mind parasites. And then certain behaviors and environmental conditions basically kind of give you a rise, give you an infestation. The sugar, I can't even touch it. I get a headache immediately.
yeah,
I haven't eaten any kind of cane sugar, raw sugar in 20 years.
wow.
Literally.
Did,
I haven't
did
had,
you
I mean, every time I try a donut or a piece of cake or something, it's, oh my God, I get a headache. It's like, ugh, this is horrible. It's totally sweet.
did you instinctively go off
Yeah.
sugar, or was it natural progression? Yeah.
I think when I first started becoming aware of it is when somebody showed me that it's true that if you put a penny into a Coke, into a glass of Coca-Cola, it will clean the penny off. And I'm like, oh wow, this is what I'm putting inside of me. I think that's when I got off soda, and then I can't remember exactly, but I think it's hard to remember when exactly how that happened, but yeah, I kind of instinctively realized this is toxic. I got to get, I was never really addicted to it, but
Right.
yeah, anyway. So the Facebook and all that, this is like sugar. This is an addiction.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's just funny that you mentioned how like the Chinese and the Indians, because my grandma died a couple years before COVID, and on her
Oh,
deathbed, her last words, she kept repeating to me, like you need to know this, the Chinese and the Indians, the Chinese and the Indians, like something big, like it
really?
felt like something big was coming, like it was this like forewarning almost. But she kept
Was she
repeating it.
watching right-wing news?
No, she didn't pay attention, like she didn't watch a lot of news. She didn't, she was very
Really?
like internal oriented. She worried about her family members, but she was very like
Yeah.
in touch with, indigenous and nature and
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, right. Well, I don't know. You'll have to figure out what that was, but that is a little bit of an interesting kind of like factoid there about the, yeah, and I think we've seen the tech guys on seminars talk about how that they've consciously built it to give you dopamine hits, and they're constantly
yeah,
testing these social media systems to get you addicted, just like they have with the food, with the different chemicals. Bobby Kennedy talks about how that the scientists that were inventing addictive chemicals in the tobacco industry, once they collapsed that, they went into the food industry. And
yeah,
so, right. So this is like really important actually, is that the whole thing of shadow work and inner work, it's kind of secondary to just taking care of yourself, your body, and your basic environmental conditions, right? It's like the first thing is, yeah, I need quiet time. I need space. I need time to think and space to think. And, so that you can actually hear yourself.
yeah,
And then it's, I need a clean diet. I need exercise. I need sunlight. All these kind of basic things are really first, and maybe people don't always get, maybe they get into the order of operations isn't always exactly that, but usually that's kind of where awareness starts. It's with body awareness and health awareness
yeah,
and environmental awareness, and then it moves into introspection and self-awareness of what's going on in the psyche and all that.
yeah,
And I look at Americans. I mean, you're in Canada. I think it's a little bit different. It's a little closer to Europe, but they're half of them are literally and they're just. I go to the grocery store and I see what people are shopping. I see how people look. They look horrible. I was like, whoa. And they're not, you mean all these people, you mean hundreds of millions of Americans are walking around 100, 150 pounds overweight, and they don't even, it doesn't even come to their mind, oh, maybe I should get on a diet. Maybe I should
yeah.
not eat this big tub of ice cream. It's like, wow,
It's a
that's like, they're
comfort.
like animals.
Yeah.
It's like cows. They'll just eat whatever you put in front of them, or dogs. It's like, wow. And so no wonder we're having a hard time finding community. We're in
Yeah.
a really low point in our culture right now.
Well, and speaking to that about like overeating, it's not till I got sober from alcohol that I mean, prior to that, I was a runner in high school, and that like stopped me from eating as much sugar and
Right,
pop.
right.
But when I got sober from alcohol, that's when
Mhm.
I really stopped to have the time to question the dynamics within myself, not just outward and in my family. And I think when you're living from the survival pattern, they're trying to protect, like it's a protection thing.
Yeah. Oh, the eating?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, the eating is
yeah,
definitely it's a very infantile feeling of being nurtured,
yeah,
being fed. Right. And I think the sugar and all of that, it doesn't do that for me, but I think for a lot of people it does. It makes them feel satiated. It makes them feel more secure or whatever at a very low physiological level. And it's just, yeah, so the whole thing, I mean, we could go on and on about the societal and the cultural side of things and how it's all degraded, and this is what the red pill people are looking at, and they're just hyper focusing on all this. I mean, everything we've said so far could just be on these red pill kind of programs.
yeah,
And this is why I always intuited, because I was quote unquote red pilled like 20 years ago, and I kind of intuited that once people became aware of the dark side of the society, then after a while they would be able to naturally be able to look at their own dark side, because it just makes sense that once you've brought evil out of the shadow and you can look at it, then you're kind of initiated to it and kind of primed, and then maybe you can look at it in yourself. And I don't know if that's actually true or not.
Well, I think it starts with safety. I think it starts with having conversations where like people who've done the shadow work express what that actually looks like in their day-to-day life, which is why I kind of share some of my stuff
You
and
do
not
that really.
not to regurgitate it, but just to show like, I remember being at a retreat probably just before COVID. I think it was 2020, early 2020.
Mhm.
And this girl in the we had a sharing circle. And so we were expressing things that we carried shame around. And hearing her express how she acted quite like poorly as a teacher working with disabled kids, she had this like day where she just snapped. And
Mhm.
just seeing her express that and acknowledge that and have so much shame around it and let it go, that allowed
Mhm.
me to speak about some things that I would have never said had she not said that.
Right.
And so it's a deep shame. Like I really do feel that the source of Wetiko, I think it's gr- greed. It's shame. It's shame based.
Mm.
And I think people are not going to walk. I think for people to walk this path, they have to hear from others who humble themselves enough to express what that
Yeah.
genuinely looks like. Because it's easy for like anybody to get on a podcast and talk about shadow work, but it's like, what does that look like day to day? And
Oh yeah.
like not catering to their stories, but acknowledging where people are at and realizing they have stories.
Yeah.
They might have stories about you, Colin, being a man, a white
Yeah.
man, you
Right.
know, on
Oh,
they might have stories about me. And just
some groups have that.
not
Yeah.
not catering to that, but acknowledging that that is there
Mhm.
and having compassion for that. That is shadow work, right? Like it's
Sure. Yeah, bringing into awareness anything that was not only unconscious, but that's that's actively detrimental to the equilibrium of your psyche. You don't have to bring up all unconscious material. The
right.
psyche is doing what it's doing. It's not going to even give you most of what's in there. The shadow stuff is the stuff that you should be looking at.
Yeah.
It's some kind of feeling or some kind of impulse or memory that's tied up in a complex or whatever, and it's getting in your way.
Yeah, it's harming you or other
It's,
people.
right, and you're projecting it, and it's leading to compulsions and neurosis and all that. It's part of something parasitic or something destructive to you, and that has to be brought up and looked at and ventilated and so-called what's the word? Integrated.
Yeah.
Integrated. And so that's shadow. It's anything. It could be, I mean, we talk about the golden shadow, meaning, it's all kinds of talents and genius that's in your unconscious that maybe your parents didn't see, or maybe your family didn't really think was, like this is a lot of the time with artists
Yeah. Or you're
that
too sensitive or too like
yeah,
you ask
no.
too many questions or you
Yeah.
speak
Oh,
too
we get
like
curiosity. Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Exactly. Those things, they get shoved down. And then when you try to express them as a child, they're kind of pushed down again. And so then shame forms around those drives, those natural impulses. And so, yeah, so you have to get at the shame. Shame is a huge one.
Yeah.
Shame isn't the older one. Think about people who are in like really religious Catholic type backgrounds. They have guilt in there. I never had guilt. Guilt
Well,
wasn't really part of my shadow profile.
oh wow, that's nice. Guilt was definitely something I lived with most of my
Mm.
life, but
Wow.
not so much anymore. But one thing too I want to say about guilt, shame, and blame specifically is that's religious. And I remember hearing this
Yeah.
one woman talk about because she did a lot of research in the religion and how that caused guilt, shame, or blame. Well, you and me, any human, if we were raised by parents who were like, we had good enough parents who
Yeah.
were, conscientious, who were really like affirming, emotionally present, we would never learn guilt, shame, or blame.
Oh,
We would learn grief and we would learn to feel anger because those
Right.
are valid. Those are natural human emotions. Somebody comes across you and asserts, sexually aggressive you better be angry. You have to be like, that's a boundary. That's not blame. That's
But
it's
guilt, shame, and blame are also
They're
necessary.
surface level.
Oh, let me think about this.
It,
Uh,
it it tripped me up when I saw it. I was just like, this makes a lot of sense, because when you're stuck in guilt or shame or blame,
yeah.
it's a loop. It covers up what's actually underneath a lot of the time, which is grief, which is anger, which is, you know, um,
Yeah, okay. So let's say that. Let's say, okay. Um, in my practice of doing that emotional clearing practice, often anger would be on top and grief would be below it. And that would be kind of the common dynamic, the common sort of energy package there.
yeah.
Whereas guilt was never really part of the thing. And shame is something that kind of is always there, but it's sort of like a shame is kind of like this more general kind of moat or fog or whatever that's just on everything. Or it's not on everything, but it's, you know what I
Shame
mean?
is, I'm bad. I'm
Right,
bad. I don't
right,
belong.
right.
And it feels like you say, weighty, like it's,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But you wouldn't learn to feel those things if you were with parents who were healthy, and like, you would learn anger. Like I said, you would learn to feel sorrow, but that's
Uh-huh.
not grief, because with sorrow, with all those other, with natural feelings, you can move through them and then they're gone. It's not a loop that's clinging on.
Hold on a sec. Mr. Microphone screwed up his microphone. Um, I can't say that shame and guilt are not natural. They're all
Sure.
natural. They're all natural, and they've been around for the longest time. And you can even go into indigenous societies, and they still are shaming, right? Because shaming is it's sort of, just think about it. It sounds very to okay, so there's a child's presenting themselves in a way that's not appropriate for the family dynamic, for the family profile, or for the culture or the community profile. And so the parent and the community um, reacts in a way that this feeling, this emotion we call shame comes up, and it's a way of getting the child to get back into the place that, behavioral state that the parent and the community wants, right? It's sort of it's kind of like another, instead you could beat them, you could say no, and you could smack the child down or whatever, and they would learn a certain way. But this is a more feminine way of doing it, and then you can, if you can invoke shame, then that's another way of getting the child to get into order, right? Get into within the boundaries. And it's like it has to come from, it seems very mammalian, and it seems very feminine and very relational, and it seems like it's one mode that humans use to get children, to get others to conform to the status quo, right? It's just one way of doing that. Anger and aggression is another way. It's a more masculine way, and the shame is a more feminine way. And when you look at it and you go, that's horrible, those parents are doing that. I agree with that, but at the same time, it has to be something incredibly ancient, or we wouldn't have all this well-developed physiological kind of ability to feel shame and to carry it. Because so it has to be very ancient. So I have to say it's something that's natural, that's been a part of our evolution. Microphone stuff. And and um, and so, but it's just it's maybe it's just that we are now, you and I and a certain number of people are now in a place in the conscious, in our consciousness, to where we're looking at these much more primitive kind of relational and behavioral modes and going, we don't need that anymore. In the same way that people are looking at religion and going, okay, that's a certain mode and all of that, but we kind of don't want to be stuck in that mode anymore. And they're kind of breaking out from that. And that's only really happened in the first, say, in the last 150 years. So,
True.
so I think it's more like I think we're becoming aware of modes of being that are primitive, kind of, and we're going, that sucks and that's
Right.
unnatural and we don't like that and stuff. But I mean, they're chopping off people's hands in the Middle East for stealing stuff in Afghanistan or whatever. That's
Yeah.
incredibly primitive and brutal and primal and just low consciousness from our point of view. But I think that's been going on for a long time. And that is one way of getting people into order, right?
Do you think that would naturally occur though? If
Chopping
they,
off hands.
yeah,
I think that's
like,
from an
like,
like an extreme warrior type of society.
yeah,
Do you know the spiral dynamics or the integral system? Have you seen that?
I've heard of it. I haven't looked into it.
Yeah. Yeah, the integral system takes it's like a integral is like a meta system. It's got all these different theories in it, but it's got inside of it, it's got this thing called spiral dynamics.
Okay.
And but you can go right to spiral dynamics if you want. But spiral dynamics was developed by this psychologist, sociologist, I don't know what he is, um, Claire Graves, and he basically he categorized, I think it's like 7 or 8 different stages of psychosocial consciousness that mankind in different times and places has gone through these different mindsets. And one of those mindsets you're talking with like people chopping off hands or whatever is this tribal warrior warlord type consciousness that you see out in these, in these, those kind of environments and everything, and extremely masculine.
Like base animal.
Well, it's very much about it's very masculine and it's very hierarchical. And
Right.
this is the king monkey and he's on top. And if you don't do what King Monkey says, you get your hand chopped off. And then that scares all the other monkeys into behaving
Right.
because they're very high testosterone and they're very energetic and they're very explosive, the psychology of these people. And so the only way to kind of keep them ordered is through those extreme measures. And
Right.
this is why when you have those problems in Europe now, where you have taking people from those societies that have extremely explosive, high testosterone energy, young men, and you bring them into these softer civilizations, right? And you go, oh, here you go, have at it. Whatever you want to do is fine. That's not going to work. They need to their psychology needs to be, you don't have to chop their hands off, but they have to be, shown strict boundaries. So that's a stage of consciousness, and parts of humanity have gone through that. And there's like 6 or 8 stages in that system. And so when I look at that kind of stuff, the shame I think is the like the next stage after that stage. They color code that one the red stage. The blue stage, the next one, is the monotheistic stage. And
Right.
everything that comes with the Christianity and the Judeo-Christianity and all that kind of stuff, and all it's kind of a cult, and all of the different things that the system needs to use to keep you in the cult are
Right.
used, and guilt and shame are in there. And it's part of our heritage and stuff. I would say it's natural. It's coming from a certain stage of consciousness. And we're kind of, you and I, and a certain percentage of the population of the world is kind of done with that. Although that still lives in us, that still lives in our psyche, it's still in our culture. We're still dragging, that stuff is still behind us, it's still in us. And so
Yeah.
now we have to process it.
Well, I like solutions. And one other thing for shadow work that I would recommend to anybody is, have you heard of not Dr. Hammer, that's German New Medicine, Reiki therapy?
I've heard, yeah, I definitely have heard of it.
Well,
Reich. Oh, Wilhelm Reich. Reichian theory, body
yes.
armoring. Yes.
So
Yes.
he talks about like how people through traumas, stories, whatever, they
Yeah.
become hardened in their
Yeah.
habits.
Yeah.
So like you talk about like the person who's never ending eating. That's
Yeah.
I forget the exact names of each type, but
Yeah.
there's these workouts you do and you bring up the primal energy. So, say as a child, you were shamed for, I don't know, humping the air or just, babies, they make movements
Right.
that are just naturally happen.
Yeah.
And parents are just like super uncomfortable because,
Ah,
you're not taught that
yeah.
babies
Yeah.
um, and young kids, like, we're all sexual beings. We all have sexual energy. We all have primal energy, like you say.
Right.
So you bring up some of these movements,
Yeah.
and some of the movements are hilarious. Like I have to do this alone in the bush with like no one for miles because it's quite
Yeah.
intense.
Humping the air.
Yeah, yeah. And the idea is that you're reclaiming that part of yourself that was shamed upon or like aggressed
Uh,
upon or
yeah.
whatever, and you're
Yeah.
bringing up all those feelings
Yeah.
and it's not talked a whole lot about. Another word for it is bioenergetics.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a man online, his name's Devaraj Sandberg, and I would highly recommend for anybody to check him out because like since doing some of these primal movements myself, I noticed myself just having this ease about my life. Like I take up space in ways where like, I'd hide and I think stuff like that is also really helpful for
Yeah.
shadow work and for getting
Yeah.
into your
That's like
body and
somatic shadow work. Yeah. Melissa and I did different kinds of things like that too. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
yeah,
And it makes me think now that when I was just saying earlier about just look how horrible it is that these people can't control their eating and all of that. And then you're bringing up that, these much more infantile wounds that we have. And then, using the eating as a way to satiate those feelings,
they're
those
trying to go back to that baby who never got that or who
um,
maybe
yeah. Melissa used to say that too. They're like turning into big infants.
yeah,
And it's like, so from that point of view, you know, I was like shaming them, wasn't I?
a little bit.
Yeah, I was shaming them. I was like, God, what is wrong with you? But they're traumatized people. And so really the better way to look at it is, well, this is just their natural instinctual way of trying to feel better.
They're trying to get their needs met.
Their needs.
Um, and one of those types in this Reichian therapy, I forget the name, but there's one that's like always needing to feed, needing to feed. And
Yeah.
like I look at our world with a lot of people coming from emotionally neglected backgrounds. I can
Mm,
say I have definitely been. And I
mm,
think that for me is why I speak to these things because like I have that tendency within myself, not to that degree that we're
right.
seeing, but
Right. Right. Oh, yeah.
it's
I mean, just being a little overweight and eating some donuts or whatever, that's not going to make you morbidly obese.
no, but
Yeah.
just to say that like I think we have these tendencies in different ways and to the point that people go that way.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's sexual abuse there. Maybe there's
Oh.
different types of abuse that I have not lived. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, when you have
Um,
40% of the American population obese and you have like 10, 15% of them, being like these giant humans and what is it? Some high percentage of children now morbidly obese and stuff. That's huge. I mean, this is this is where it's almost like you have to you really have to strain to try to understand or to come up with a theory about intergenerational trauma being passed on in combination with the modified environment that's being purposely modified, in combination with the stress levels of having to work in the rat race, in combination with lowered IQs and the ingredients in the food. You kind of have to put it all kind of together in combination with just the general fact that the society, modern Western society, maybe doesn't have a clear vision of what it needs to become anymore. So it's sort of lost its kind of heroic vision and kind of
Yeah.
put it all together to kind of have to answer this of why this is happening.
Well, I think that's part of the shadow, though. It's like it's a disgust because I feel that disgust sometimes too. But that's a disgust for that version of myself, you know? Like I don't
Yeah.
like that part of myself. I have
Disgust.
I
Yeah.
have to I have some work to do around that part of myself too.
I don't
Um,
feel disgust really. I know what that's like. It's like, yeah, you have a, 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 a disgust function. I don't really feel disgust. I feel, I feel in, I feel insulted.
mm,
It's like an insult to my awareness and intelligence that it's like, it's like it's an insult. Is that what it is?
it's so unnatural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I go to other countries and I don't see those kind of problems. I don't see all the weight issues and I don't see the social media addiction and all of this to any kind of a degree like that.
What do you think the difference is in their socialization? Like, why do you think that difference exists? That it's so like intense in the States and Canada that
Oh, in
do you think it's
Canada.
the advertising?
What is it? What are you saying is the shadow function in Canada?
No, like what makes you think like it's so vast and like half the population you're saying in the States is
Oh,
obese? Why do
yeah.
you think it's so prominent compared to the Europeans?
Oh. Um, I think the Americans are in general more immature than the Europeans in general. I think maybe that's because the Europeans had to go through World War II,
Yeah,
right? It was a dark night of the soul, and you always evolved through a dark night of the soul. And they had to live through that, and they had to experience kinds of, yeah, grief
yeah,
that the Americans have not had to, or the Canadians have not had to experience. They had
yeah,
to really be shot down, and and I know that they're also susceptible to all kinds of, cultural parasitism, and they're getting invaded by all the parasitic politicians and all that stuff too.
yeah.
But but below that, there's a certain level of maturity that they have that the Americans are still kind of like a 16-year-old boy. It's kind of where they're at. The
Well,
collective
that's
consciousness of America.
I feel that because I work with some people that very much on their phones. Um, you know, the masculinity isn't really like it's like there's a lack of responsibility for the planet and for those around them.
Oh,
Like a lack of care for those around them, like a lack, but that comes from a lack of care for themselves too. And I
yeah,
just
yeah.
that for me bothers me seeing the lack of masculinity in this country.
Oh, right. I'm in Texas.
Are you
And
in? Oh, so you see like,
I see a lot of masculinity, and I actually see some pretty healthy kind of masculinity, just some real basic. It's very basic masculinity, and just just men, doing man stuff and cooking barbecue and jacking up trucks and and that kind of stuff and sports and man stuff, and but I see a lot of men who are really just secure in that.
mm,
They're secure in their basic, kind of man masculinity,
yeah,
and it's natural. And so whereas in California, where Melissa's from and where I was living, um, it's more like Canada.
mm.
So this is kind of the whole dichotomy of the conservative, liberal, and culture and personality type that goes with that, because certain people go into one or the other.
Well, I
But
would say,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry. Oh,
No,
I was
no.
just going to say, we definitely have that masculinity in Canada too, but I see both. Like, I see the very much feminized masculine and the
Oh,
base masculine. And like you say, the right or the left, it's, you know, like the very conservative, very like,
Yes. That it's Jordan Peterson pointed out that
Um,
the that
Lack of
it's
deep awareness,
people.
just the base masculine, like it. Sorry.
No, no, no. Our audio was getting cut out for a second, so I started talking over you. No, go ahead. Yeah, keep going.
Oh, I was just saying, like we have both the base masculine and the effeminate masculine or men, and like I think of the conservatives, let's say, and when I say conservatives, I don't mean people who lean towards conservative and aren't super tied. I mean people who are really tied to that
Oh
and
yeah.
very much, oh, it's all the immigrants. Oh, it's all this. Like that kind of mentality is very common in Canada.
Oh yeah.
For the people who are kind of like starting to wake up, but like they're missing a big piece of the pie.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Um, I was going to say Jordan Peterson pointed out once, I think this is true, that personality, that political affiliation and all of that is related to personality type. Oh, I don't know if you hear a bunch of noise.
No,
Um,
you're good.
Hold on, let me try to fix this. There we go. Her, I got my Real Pro audio set up, but it's like microphones and all this, and I've been trying to figure out kind of a way to do a more easy one. So I have like a little trying to figure that out. But so we'll see how this comes out. But people who are higher in openness, because he uses the big five personality traits test or whatever it is. People who are high in openness tend to be on the liberal side, and people who are high in conscientiousness tend to be on the conservative side. And so religious people, conscientiousness is orderliness, wanting to order everything and
Mm,
make everything in nice order. And that's kind of a masculine principle. And openness is a feminine principle.
right.
Artists and women and people who are more open and open-minded are on the liberal side. And so that's kind of where they kind of fall or whatever. But in the urban masculine is different from the country. You know, the men who live in the country and have to cut down trees and build houses and loggers and whatever we do in the country shoot animals and skin them and butcher them and eat them and that is a healthy normal masculinity. And then you have this urban kind of fake version of it, whatever it ends up being, and it's always changing. But
I can lift 300 pounds, buddy.
what's that?
I can lift 300 pounds.
Oh, I can lift 300 pounds. Yeah, exactly right. That's the superficial persona version of masculinity. And here we have a big problem with men and their trucks, using their trucks as a to try to show off their masculinity and stuff like that, and it's really silly. But isn't it interesting how we came on here to talk about shadow work, and then we're doing this we're talking about the culture, and that's an outside thing. So we're pointing out. We're going, look at the world. Look how screwed up it is. Look how traumatized everybody is. Look how immature they are, and blah, 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 blah. And our focus just naturally goes out. And I
Mhm.
know we're both like red pill types and we look at that kind of stuff. But even us who are really deep into the shadow work, it's like, okay, we have to talk about, we have to go take it back inside now. Right? Isn't that funny how we did that? I don't know if
Yeah.
I kind of
It's
pushed.
a comfort thing. I think well, I mean, it goes back with being the tribe. You don't want to be the one that's gossiped about. So you kind of like look outwards. I posted a video on grief last or yesterday, and it's vulnerable.
What?
It's
Oh, oh, oh,
vulnerable.
oh,
It's
oh.
vulnerable to look within and to share that side of it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it is. It makes you vulnerable. Absolutely, it does. Absolutely. Yeah, it absolutely does. So, okay. So now let's see what time is it? And let's see where we are in the whole thing. So we've actually been talking for, maybe 45 minutes or something. So we're gonna have to go longer than an hour. But let's do our best now to go on the inner side. And oh well, I have questions. See, look at me. I'm not that professional at being an interviewer. Um, I have to learn.
It's a bit of both.
Uh, so I have, what do you study? What are you studying right now? Because this is a thing where people are not studying. They're not looking into any field, like you were talking about bioenergetics and stuff, and they're just taking whatever off of YouTube or whatever it is, and they're not actually focusing themselves on studying. You have to study some kind of modality, or
Yeah,
from one to the next, and bring these into your kit, your toolkit. So what are you studying right now? Or
the ones I've been called to in the last couple of years,
Mhm.
more recently, has been internal family systems.
Yeah.
I've heard about it several times. In our last conversation, I really started, like, I have a couple books, so I started really doing the practices.
Mhm.
Um, Nervous system repair. So, like, getting to know when I'm in parasympathetic versus sympathetic, which is like fight or flight, freeze.
Yeah.
And because when you get to know how you respond in different situations, you can see your patterns come out like 10 steps before, and really watching yourself.
Yes.
Um, Lately, because we're going to start a family,
Hmm.
I've really been looking in the birth industry. And
Yeah.
that's something I want to give more voice to, because I truly believe the more women who birth outside of the system, or at least if you're going to birth inside of the system, but you have some self awareness of how you set boundaries prior to birthing in the system, or, you know, you're really self reflecting on your relationship with your husband, and, vice versa. Like, it has to be both parents before having children. And this is like the benefit of us meeting when we met, and like waiting a little bit longer, is really, we've had so much time to express and talk about the really hard stuff, and
Mhm.
really looking at ourselves, and we know our traits, we know our triggers with one another. There's no question about what they are. And I
Right.
don't think a lot of parents have had or taken that chance to do that. And that
Mhm.
takes really thinking, why are you having children? What do you want to teach your children? What do you want, you know, how do you want to steward them so that they're conscientious? Like, and when you said conscientious earlier, to me, that means self reflective, self aware. So I was like, oh, that's interesting that
Yeah.
you paint it, or like,
Conscientious.
'cause-
Conscious.
yeah, yeah. So what am I researching? Yeah, the birth world, nervous system regulation, internal family systems, um, how the animus and anima plays out in men and women. That's really important. Um, yeah, I feel like these are things that I've really touched upon quite a bit in the last few years. Like, I just naturally felt called to them. I found Jordan Peterson, who used to
Mhm.
trigger the fuck out of me. I
Oh,
love him.
why?
I
What?
love him.
Oh, you like him now. What
I
used to
do.
trigger you? Just his
Oh, because
aggressiveness?
yeah, I have been taught to fear the masculine.
Ah,
Um, and he couldn't be more like of a healthier masculine. He's so, and
right.
people have their opinions about him and how he's potentially, part of the in crowd. I don't know, but regardless, he has really helped me with discipline and really looking at myself. And like, that's another thing, talk about studying, is like, how are you a victim? How are you painting yourself a victim? How are you so eager to find your own victimhood, or on the opposite end, feeling better than others? Like, the
Yeah.
victim and perpetrator dynamic lives within me. It lives within all of us. And I really think when we really get in touch with that version of ourselves, or both versions of ourselves, we set healthier boundaries. We become more clear when we're trying to get power over because we're trying to protect ourselves, versus, oh, I'm caught in this, like, this is happening to me. but I'm really in a story from when I'm 5 years old. And I believe that life is happening from that 5 year old version, but it's not at all happening. And it's really dancing with that, like really getting to know that part. Because I can get into victimhood. Like that is something I really have to watch and really touch upon. And yeah.
Right. That's archetypally feminine. And right. And right, the victim perpetrator archetypal dichotomy, right? Which is sort of a shadow side of masculine and feminine. And they flip.
Mm-hmm.
And one person, like in a marriage, one person might be on the victim side more often, often the woman, but not always.
Yeah.
And then the other one will be more of the antagonizer. The we used to call it victim victor, but victim perpetrator. One will be more of the perpetrator. He will trigger the situation, and then she will feel victimized, and then the cycle will move, and then the she will go through her feelings of victimhood until she finally gets to the point where she says, I'm fed up with this, I'm sick of this. And then she will turn into the aggressor, and then
Yeah.
she will shame him and knock him down, so he's now down in the dumps and he feels bad for attacking her, and then he has to go through the shame thing, and then the whole cycle is complete.
A big thing is it like Tyler for the longest time would call me on stuff, and I catch myself giving that advice to people now because it's true and I did not want to hear it. But like a big thing is like as a woman, especially saying I am frustrated instead of you I am
Oh,
frustrated. That's hard. That's really freaking hard to just say I feel this way. If you're
yes.
and I think that's, coming from an emotionally neglectful background
Yeah.
where you weren't allowed to feel feelings. Like, and when I say these things, it's not about judgment. It's like, it's valid. And we have
Yeah.
to feel those parts of ourselves. Like, we
Yeah.
really have to feel the parts of ourselves that felt invalidated, the parts of ourselves that were shamed
Yes.
to, but it's a dance and it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years.
Yeah.
And I really want to push that home because I feel like to get to want to do this stuff, you have to know that you have to create safety within, and that's a process. I mean, men add to that safety in the relationship, but we
Mhm.
also have to like cultivate it within ourselves. And I'm not talking
Yeah.
about like abusive dynamics where the man is like clearly physically abusive, like
Right.
that's not what I'm speaking to. And I think that distinction is important because there's definitely people using oh, that emotion is just within you without actually looking at like what I'm doing, using that response.
Let me see if I can kind of get you to pull that out, bring that into context. So this safety thing, you're on we need to talk about the safety thing because this keeps coming back, the safety thing. So safety, let's put it into the relationship for a second. Just safety in relationship. What do you mean by that?
So each person has to develop that safety within themselves.
Hmm.
Like they have to get to a point where they can slow down and see where they're overreacting potentially to the past
Yes.
and it's not something current. But if it is something current, like if your partner's just, being overtly abusive, that's a them thing. And it's okay to call attention to that. And then in time, you have to decipher like, can I work with this? Is this, something I can work with? Because you can't ask somebody, like you could bring a horse to water, but you can't force it to
Right.
drink, kind of thing.
It's not actually a them thing only because you wouldn't even find out about, I mean, you have a relationship. If this person who's being overtly abusive, that didn't just start yesterday.
No, you're
So,
responsible for
and
like,
so that's been going on
yeah.
and
So
you've
you
been
have to
staying
look
with it.
within yourself at that point, why am I still fueling this?
Yeah.
Why am I staying in this? Why did
Right.
this come into my, like, why did this come into my life? What about me is not secure within myself, is not
Right.
compassionate to myself,
Right.
allows somebody to like speak to me or like, you know?
Right. Oh, what part of me is a shame is it where it's back to shame again, right? Because only somebody that feels ashamed of themselves and insecure about themselves would let somebody treat them that way, right?
Yeah.
And then you can just go right back to the family dynamics. You can go right back to mom and dad and you can see where it came from.
Yeah. I wanted to make that distinction because I think when I hear shadow, like, I think a lot of women specifically, I'm
Yeah.
speaking to my own experience. A lot of women struggle to come to that because it's like, oh, that means the abuser just gets away with it. They just like, but it's like, no, like, how are you being unkind to yourself? Like, in what ways, because I've been with somebody who's been a little, I would say, narcissistic. And I
Mhm.
look back and I was like, yeah, I was not kind to myself at that point. Like, you're seeking for someone, like, it's almost like a narcissist, like, say, a full blown one will
Yeah.
give you, I heard this and it just resonated. They'll give you unconditional love and then rip it all right, which is basically
Right.
going back to the womb
Yeah.
and then having it ripped away. But a
Right.
person a person can't give you unconditional love. That's love bombing.
Right. Right. Yeah, these are patterns. These are shadow complexes that are intergenerational.
Yeah.
They're intergenerational, and the thing you were saying about the if you if you have this sort of abusive relationship dynamic where let's say it's sometimes it's the woman abusing the man, but usually it's
Yeah.
usually let's just say the normal version of this is a man is abusive to a woman and then she's getting sick of it and she's starting to wake up to it and saying I don't deserve this, and then she's in a stage where she has to assert her sovereignty. She has to actually activate her warrior energy, right? And stand up for herself and leave the situation or get it into control. And she
Yeah.
has to assume some animus energy. And so she gets online or she talks to her friends and they're like, yeah, he's abusing you. You need to get away from him and screw him and blah, 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 blah. And then somebody like me comes in and says, well, it's both of you together. You're each 50% of the cycle. And they don't want to hear that. They're not ready for that. They're at the stage of just fight.
Yeah.
And they actually need to develop their fighting skills, their self-protection skills. And so if I come in and try to go to this higher level of it and say, well, this is a dynamic that's in both of you. The reason why he's aggressive like that is because he was wounded and this is his triggerable, maladaptive survival function. And then this is your maladaptive survival function. It both comes from both of you being wounded. And now it's an active psychic complex that's running, and you're
Hmm.
both playing into it because to the woman, you may not have noticed this, but you were actually antagonizing him in covert ways that you didn't even know you were doing. You were getting him triggered, and then you finally got him triggered, and then he did it, and then blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, he had a feeling in himself that was building and building and building, and it was asking to be triggered by the woman. So each side, one side is so the abuser is abusing overtly, and then the victim is sucking it out of him, right? And but it so he's needing he's needing his energy to be displaced,
Right.
and so he's sucking it out of her. He's getting her to trigger him, and she's getting him to trigger her, and it's going like this. That's a
Yeah.
pretty advanced way of understanding it, and you have to get to that point eventually. But at some stage, you're at a lower stage of that, and you're like, no, just get away from the abusive man,
Well,
and
it's
that's legit.
survival.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
legit
Yeah, and you
boundary.
can't, just to be specific, you can't do that with the person. Like, in that situation, you have to
No,
go to the forest, you have to go where you're safe to expel that energy as a woman. woman
You, you,
or as a
you
man if he's in that relationship. And then you think after, you take time after the relationship and get to know why
right.
this is happening, you know? I
Yeah,
put that out
yeah,
there because I know
it's
it's,
true.
I see myself hearing that 10 years ago, or,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
you wouldn't like that.
no,
I tell that to
absolutely not.
women online, they don't like it.
Well, I think that's where it's like you're speaking to people where they're at, right? Like that's important
Where they're
too.
at. There are
Yeah.
some women that hear that and they go, "Yes, no, you're right. I learned that. No, that's
Yeah.
true. Doing it to
It,
each other, it's a cycle."
yeah. Oh, it's definitely true.
Um, yeah, but it's a certain you got to get to there, and
Yeah.
before that, you got to get you got to get your boundaries going, and you got to get your self-esteem up enough to be able to get to that level. Now, the thing is once you get into a more advanced relationship and your partner is willing to do this kind of work with you, you're each still dragging old junk from prior, more immature relationships into it. And so, even if, that kind of dynamic is not happening so much like it was two relationships ago or whatever, it's
Oh,
still
it's
in
still
there to a
there.
degree. But now you're with somebody who can go, yeah, I see how that's working. And when that gets triggered, they can at least soon after the cycle, they can at least go, oh, yeah, I see how that worked and then they can open it up and start to dissect it and figure it out. And so it's not like you just go, oh, okay, I'm done with those kinds of relationships, and now
Mm-mm.
I'm going to move into a healthy relationship, and I'm not going to be with men who have any kind of abusive tendencies anymore, and that's just not
Everyone
gonna happen.
has anger that's going to show up.
Yeah.
Like in our relationship, I've been uncomfortable and he's been uncomfortable with certain of our displays of anger. And then we've worked through it and it's lessening and lessening. And, it's no one's responsibility to not express anger because somebody's uncomfortable either. Like that's where the victim gets fed, where it's like the other person ends up tippy toeing because that other person
Yeah.
is afraid of their anger. Like it really is,
Oh
it's
yeah.
a delicate balance. It
Oh yeah.
really is.
Yeah. You don't want to do the tippy toe thing either.
Mm-mm.
Afraid of the explosion because you don't have any conflict resolution skills.
Yeah.
But it was like I remember actually one time Melissa and I were fighting, and this was something that stayed with her the whole time, was that I just blurted out that you can't avoid conflict. She's like, why are
You,
we doing this again? And blah 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 and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, Melissa, you can't avoid conflict. And then she stopped, and it was like, oh. Whoa, maybe that's true. You actually can't. It's going to happen one way or another. It's going to be in this form or it's going to be in this form. The energy is going to move. It's going to create,
yeah,
if it's not conflict with you at your wife or husband at home, it's going to be in the workplace. It's going to come out. It's going to be on the road. It's somewhere it's going to come out. You can't avoid conflict. So what you want to do is you want to learn how to manage and problem solve conflict so that you can pull it apart and lessen the energy that is feeding into it.
yeah. Well, that's the thing with more capacity. The more you attune to yourself, the more you have capacity to hold more space. Tyler has had to say the same to me. He's like, "You're resisting life," which I do not love to hear, and it's true.
By trying to avoid conflict.
Oh, just complaining about stupid shit that I can't change. That's not within my realm of control of changing.
Oh, like us talking earlier in this broadcast about all the things that are wrong with the world and other people and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
There's a certain like acceptance that comes with it. Like you have to get to a point of acceptance to a point. Like not being completely detached, but
right.
because I think it's okay to grieve. Like what's happening in the world is obviously crazy, and you have to be a little bit. I don't think you can be completely detached to it, and I don't think that's very human.
Right.
But it's a balance of um And I can't say I've walked that balance completely yet, but I'm getting closer and closer, and it's a process. I think grieving is really important.
Oh, tell me about it. This is
Like
yeah.
one thing that's really been coming up for me lately is when
I'm
I
like
see
grief master over here.
you're what?
I'm like a mat learning to master grief over here. Me,
Yeah.
I am. Yeah. Even before Melissa died, it was doing that John Ruskin emotional clearing process, and anger would be on top and grief would be below. It's, man, I've just cry so I cry constant. I learned how to cry. Really, really learned how to cry like 10, 12 years ago, you know.
Hmm.
Now it's just constant. But but I feel like if I hadn't done learned how to do that, and if I hadn't been letting that fountain out, you know, then I would be like a lot of these people.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just when it comes like my grief lately has been just thinking about how many people don't have time to slow down. You know,
Yeah.
they're in survival for their jobs. And it breaks my heart because there's so much potential. I really do believe even that person who's eating like a slob, like what would their potential be if they knew what they don't know? Because I don't know. I'm a bit of an idealist that way.
Yeah, um, even the highly unconscious, 400-pound person or whatever is if you get into you can if you start to learn if you have a situation where you have to learn about that person, you have to work with them or learn about their life or whatever, you're going to find out pretty quickly if they're open enough that they have all kinds of depth,
Oh
all
yeah.
kinds of human depth, and 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 if you will go into them, if they'll let you go into them, then you will find all kinds of stuff in there that's just very very all kinds of bright stuff, all kinds of really deep stuff. It's just that they don't have an example or a practice in working with that and bringing it up or anything, and they're just kind of right here and they're just living through their complexes or whatever. But below that, there's a full human
Yeah.
that's no better or worse than any other human.
One example I really like is Richard Grannon. Richard Brannon, he talks a
Oh,
lot
right.
about the narcissist
Right, because
personality.
he's a narcissist, so he's very good at that.
He might be. I don't know. Is
He
he
is.
diagnosed?
No, but did you hear about he had a big falling out with Sam Vaknin, who's another
Okay.
expert on narcissism, who's also a narcissist. So
Yes.
these two narcissist experts on narcissism had a big fight and then they disowned each other. So,
I'm definitely wary when I listen because there's,
doesn't
but
matter. You can learn all kinds
you
of good
can learn
stuff.
lots of
Oh,
stuff.
oh, yeah, 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 yeah. No, I
And
don't
so
think that.
he was talking about how as a child you have these four coordinates of where you can go into where your parents will not shame you, but you go too far to this, oh, and you're shamed.
Uh,
You ask, and then so when I think of that unconsciousness or I see people, they get to the edges, it's like they don't know how to contain that. They don't know
uh,
how to hold space for that. Like one example with my dad, he was
yeah.
talking about his childhood and like this cute little story of
Mhm.
his twin brother and him with my grandma and how she was singing and stuff. And it brought him so much joy when he was
Mhm.
sharing this story with me. Like he just had the child, like the smile of a child. And then within seconds, it's
Oh,
like almost there was like too much
oh,
joy. Like,
oh,
and that for me
there you go.
that was really like impactful.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there you go. Um, well, one thing that occurred to me is during our conversation here is that is is why I wanted to have you on is because of how talented you are at being able to um, it's weird with me. It's like I understand everything you're saying, I understand, but I go into this kind of male kind of teacher mode. And it kind of it's like this, it's like that. And then it takes and then your mode is more feminine and your mode is more about okay, bringing it back to the actual examples and the embodied reality of this, not the theory. And Melissa was like that too. And so being around her is how I was able to have a balance,
Mm,
right? Not always go off into the theory mode because then it has to come back to these, where is it practical and what is it actual, what is the actual experiential side of this, not just the theory side. Um, and then you're very good at communicating it and talking about it.
oh,
And
thank you.
yeah, you're super good at that. And so it's like there's a lot of people like me. You can hear a lot of men talk about smart stuff, but what they need is they need people like you who are bringing them into, okay, this is the experience and this is the feelings, and you have a memory, a feeling memory where you can remember kind of these were the feelings and this is how I processed it and all of that. Whereas I don't think my memory is as good. I learn all that stuff and then you bring it up and I'm like, oh yes, and I can tell you, oh yeah, like I told you stuff that shows you that I know, I'm doing the work. But but I kind of fall on the theory side and then you kind of fall on the experience side. I think it's archetypally masculine, feminine.
I think
But
it's good to have conversations about it though, because I don't always feel like I remember stuff. Sometimes it's in conversations with people that comes out.
oh yeah,
Like
right.
I'm quite introverted,
Hmm.
but when I speak to somebody who can understand or is open to this, it comes out.
Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah, we'll have to keep having more conversations.
I
So,
do have
how much battery you got?
let me see, 5%,
Oh, you're on
15,
5%. Okay. So we probably only have,
15, 1, 5.
oh, 15%.
Yeah,
Oh, so we might have another 10, 15 minutes,
yeah.
15 maybe or something like that. Okay. I asked you what you studied, and I don't see what is there anything in there that, uh, oh, well, I think I might. Okay, so what do you think about this then? Let's go. Let's have another talk soon where we both can actually think about what we want to talk about and kind of just make it short, like three things or something like that, and just really go into those things and let them be, where we don't talk about the culture and all that stuff. We just talk about work, doing the work.
I think that's a good idea. I
You
do
do?
think it can get carried away, and I get it.
Yeah,
I have that tendency within myself, but I also think like if we're going to encourage people to do it,
yeah.
it's like what
Oh
are
yeah.
some tangible
Yeah, yeah.
examples? What does it look like in your day-to-day life, you know?
Well, people always, people that look at my books, they know I'm talk about that emotional processing method where you get triggered and you go sit with it and you let the
Oh,
feeling
it's good.
come up
It's
and
really
you just
good.
let it go. That's one, very practical thing that we can talk about that's there. And um, but I was gonna ask you, this is kind of external again though. What do we what okay,
Well, this is good observation for you.
oh yeah. Do you mean just being an interviewer?
Well, that you tend to go external a little bit, it seems.
Um, I think we all kind of tend to go external,
Yeah.
but, um, but yeah, women, you listen to women talking and stuff like that. They will just immediately get together. They will talk about. I mean, one thing I know women constantly are talking about is family dynamics and friends and all that kind of stuff. Just friends and family and what Johnny said and Susie said and all that kind of stuff. But women also go into, well, how did you feel when he said this and when he did this and then what, blah, blah, and all that. And you know, they go into the whole feeling thing and all of that. And that's really where a lot of this work is. It's in there. It's at feeling level. A lot of this work is at feeling level.
Yeah.
And so we have to be able to talk in that kind of language. And I kind of just in a masculine way kind of default to thought level. And I kind of have to put myself back into feeling level.
It's a
Even though
practice.
I could talk to you about grief right now because I'm doing all this grief processing of losing Melissa and all of that. And so that's something that we could talk about. But I was just going to ask you on the whole. This is external again, but this whole thing of the, you know, I made this video recently about the human potential movement, and do you remember? I mean, you know that there. Remember in the 60s, everyone was doing acid and all of that, and they were getting in touch with themselves in a new way. And then you had all these therapies come out of it, the Reichian therapy and the Gestalt therapy, and have the Esalen Institute in California, and all these, you know, the gurus that are coming out, the Tim Learys and the Ram Dasses and all this. And you have this whole movement, and Krishnamurti was doing stuff and all this, and it's all about consciousness, and it's all
Hmm.
about raising your consciousness and all of that. And then that ended. That just fell off a cliff. And the whole culture just fell off a cliff with that whole thing. And young people are not interested in that. And so the whole movement, the whole movement of developing yourself, really fell off a cliff. And now we're all hurt and we're all traumatized and we've been neglecting the work. And so now, and a lot of the people who talk about doing the work aren't really doing it super deeply. So I'm thinking to myself that, okay, well, no one else is showing up to be like even Jordan Peterson, who I like too. In fact, I've been following Jordan Peterson I'm kind of burnt out on him now, but I was following him back in like 2008.
Yeah.
And so even he is all at the male theory level and stuff like that and smart guy stuff, and not as much at the feeling level, and not as much as at processing feelings and all this kind of stuff. And he doesn't talk about that so much. He's more at the cognitive level. And hardly no one is really standing up and being like, okay, here's the movement, I'm your leader, and follow me, and here's the books you need to read. There's no Joseph Campbell or Alan Watts or any of these people that used to be around. And so I'm like, okay, well, then we're just going to have to do it ourselves. It's not going to be the way it used to be, where you would have very few leaders and you have a lot of followers and very few leaders. It's more like you have a lot of leaders, and
Yeah.
everybody. It's more democratized. The pyramid's kind of been flattened, but still, you're going to have people who are in a certain, have their certain little niche or whatever. So that's kind of what I've been doing with the YouTube channel lately and stuff. Now that Melissa's not here, I'm like, okay, this kind of information, this kind of approach has to be. I have to push it. I have to push it. I have to challenge people, and I have to get people to come together and to have meetings together and to get on Zoom with each other or to meet each other physically, and then to actually be really vulnerable with each other and openly talk like the way you talk, and really put your junk out there, and then be serious and be studying theories and systems and methods and stuff, and be experimenting with them and all of this, and really being an alchemist, being a
Hmm.
psycho-spiritual alchemist, and putting this at the forefront of your life. There's so few people now that are doing that, and you're doing that. I'm doing that. And Melissa was like the freaking Olympic athlete of all this kind of stuff. And so I just feel like that's part of one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you and have broadcasts with you, is because I feel like you have just a immense amount of natural talent to be able to talk about. You have the courage to do the work. You have the inclination and the courage and the intelligence to be able to do it, and the natural, the inclination, and then you have the ability to talk about it. So, so yeah, so let's just do more of these.
I appreciate that. I feel
Yeah.
like my head's like, oof.
Your head's like, what?
I appreciate the compliments.
Oh, I'm blowing up your head?
I'm
I don't
teasing.
think that's going to happen with you. No, because you already have so much kind of pushback coming from the other direction that if you start getting compliments and stuff like that, it's just going to start giving you some balance. It's not going to turn
I'm
you
just teasing.
into a narcissist.
No. Yeah, that's like a fear that was there for me for the longest time. But the more you come into contact with your real raw emotions and you actually like accept your emotions, the
Yeah.
less that fear comes up,
Yes.
actually. And I would
Right.
say that to anybody to balance. I appreciate that though. Like, I think I appreciate that you've been good with feedback too. And like throughout the conversation, you're like, oh, wow, this is something I've noticed. Oh, wow, this is something that, like,
Right.
maybe I'm too external because
Right.
I think a lot of people struggle with like that self-reflection. And you see it in the
That's
truth
how
there.
we are. That's how
Yeah,
people, alchemists are. We're constantly watching ourselves as we're doing our thing.
yeah,
Yeah, we can't be conscious of everything. We still have, we have stuffs in the shadow,
yeah.
but yeah, constantly try that's what we're scientists. We're scientists of the mind.
Well, one thing before getting off too, I'd like to tell people because I
Yeah.
really do like giving like, how can I apply this in my life? Like, where
Yeah.
can I start?
Yeah, I think I might even cut out some of the stuff that we talked about earlier that was just irrelevant stuff.
I'm okay either
Leave it on there.
way.
Just put it on there. I don't know how people will make it through, but okay. Yeah.
You learn
Yeah. Yeah.
through,
We'll do it again more focused next time.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
it teaches people that they can make those mistakes. Like, I think it's okay. It's good feedback.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's my
Yeah.
opinion. But
So leave us with something experiential.
yeah, if you're going to an event, like I went to a birth conference last weekend and I
Mhm.
kept a journal with myself of all the judgments I was placing on people, all
Okay.
the things I judge people about, all the ways I'm like, oh, well, this woman's standing in her power. So, like, the part of me that feels small, or like, um, also my golden shadow, like, also the things that really inspired me. I
Yeah.
write it all down.
Right.
So, because I was listening to it's about Carl Jung. It's one of
Right.
those videos where like somebody's describing his work, expressing what shadow work looks like. And they're like, for 6 months, if you do this, and I noticed as I was listening to it, where I get caught is the tension of opposites,
Mhm.
where like you have this old pattern and then you have this new idea of how to respond to it, and sometimes getting stuck on what one to choose. But that's irrelevant. The
You have an
practice,
old pattern and then you have a new idea about how you should respond.
yes.
But then you find yourself falling into the old pattern. And
Yeah. Or should I just wait to respond?
right. That's,
Yeah.
that's, that's,
That's
that's,
where a lot of people get stuck.
they get, like, what's the example here in the conference?
I guess I don't really have one. I was going on a tangent there.
But the idea is that you find yourself reacting.
But sorry?
You find yourself reacting, and then you become aware of
Yeah.
how you're reacting, and you're like, do I really want to do that? But then the complex behind the reactivity is so strong that it forces you to react in that way anyway. Like
Yes.
some guy cuts you off and you really want to flip him off or whatever on the road, and you're like, I'm not going to do that because I'm moving on from that. And then you look over there and he actually flips you off, and you're like, oh well, fuck you. I haven't done that lately, but whatever the example is. And then so you fall into the reactivity, and so your idea of how you were going to do it differently didn't work out, and start from scratch again.
Yes.
But you're aware and you watch the whole process happen. And
Well, and
that's the
that's
most
half
important
the
thing.
battle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's half the
Yeah.
battle. You become aware of how, oh, this is how it happened. So what you want to do with that example where, you know, getting angry at somebody while driving or whatever, and then two people are getting angry at each other on the highway or something, what you want to do with that is that you want to go while you're there, you're like, okay, that happened, and you're still driving. So you want to turn off the radio, and then you want to go into the feelings that are still present, right? And you want to go, so the anger is going to be, the reactivity and the anger is going to be there on top. And then you're going to be like, okay, and you're going to breathe through that. And then below that, you're going to find there's something below that, some kind of sadness, some kind of fear, something else that's below that. And you want to kind of do a little emotional process in the car and kind of just kind of carve down into the feelings and see, what's there and where did it come from. And I think, yeah, we're losing battery or whatever. But so you use those reactive, unconscious, complex driven moments as a way to get into the emotions that were behind them, the store of emotions that were down there in the first place. Did I lose you?
Yeah, my phone's at 1%. So
Okay,
I
your phone's at 1%. All right. So, do you want people to join you on Facebook or something? Do you want me to say what they're just you're Katrina Darling on Facebook if
yeah, if they
people.
want to add me on Facebook, that works. Katrina Darling. Or I
Yeah.
have Instagram and it's a doula of life underscore grief walker. I can also put this in the
Oh, I do love life underscore grief walker.
a doula of life.
Oh, doula of life. Right. There you go. Okay, thank you. Let's do it again soon, and we'll do it in a more organized way next time. And
Okay.
maybe think about it, what you can share with people, and I'll do the same, and then we'll do it again.
Okay, that sounds great. Thanks,
Okay.
Colin.
Thanks, Katrina. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.